everyone. Like Dr. Ongla said, I'm Morgan. I was part of the class of 2019 here at Elon and super excited to be back sharing with you all today my experience with data at Disney. Like Dr. Ongla mentioned, it's going to be a little high level. Companies are pretty protective of their data, and for good reason, because it's so valuable, right? So I think it's really awesome that Elon is investing in Data Nexus to really put some more focus on data, because it is ultimately the gold of our day and age. So just to get started, I want to talk a little bit about my background. This is from my very first trip to Disney World. I was 4 years old in this picture. So obviously I've been a big fan for a while, grew up going to Disney, and always just thought it was such an awesome place. And I really enjoyed the experience that brought me, my family, my friends, when I would go with them later on. So it's really cool to kind of come full circle and help be a part of that magic for other people also experiencing the same thing. Then, of course, came to Elon. So I majored in applied math and statistics during my time here. Was a college fellow, studied abroad in Dublin for a semester, so lots of really wonderful experiences and really where I contribute the start to my professional development journey. After Elon, I spent a couple years as a technology consultant in Charlotte with EY, so got to learn a lot, got to work a lot, and get that real world experience before I ultimately went back to the Institute for Advanced Analytics at NC State to get my master's degree in analytics. So when I was in grad school, I graduated on a Sunday, moved to Florida on a Monday the very next day, because I landed my dream job as a senior data scientist at Disney. So this is the position that I've been in for the past almost 2 years now, and it's been an awesome experience. Love my team, love the work that I get to do. And like I said, full circle moment from being that little girl in the first picture to now being in the background, trying to make that magic for others as well. And then actually just last week, I have accepted a new position, still within Disney, but in the tech and digital space. So excited for new opportunities to come there as well. So a question that I get asked a lot, especially by family members, friends, what is data science? And I think it's a really fair question because with all the buzzwords going around in the technology space, it can be a little hard to keep up and to differentiate between these different positions that you're seeing. So data science really sits at the intersection of computer science, math and statistics, and domain or business knowledge. So of course, when I was at Elon, I got a lot of that math and statistics, as well as some of the computer science. But the domain and business knowledge kind of just comes from where you're at. You have to be a little bit of a sponge early on, soaking up everything that you can about the business so that you can use the data to make informed decisions. And ultimately, your data is only as valuable as what you're able to gain from it. So it's really important that you understand the business side of things so that you're able to draw insights that actually matter. So some of the other positions that we work closely with that are similar to data science include everything from a machine learning engineer to a data analyst. So a machine learning engineer or a data engineer being a little bit more on the technical side than a data scientist. So a little bit more managing databases, setting up software, stuff like that. And then business intelligence and data analysts sit a little bit more on that business side. So a lot of times they'll take some of the models that we've built or dashboards that we created or whatnot and translate that into what the business needs to grow and move forward. So since Disney is so massive, I thought I would just start with a quick video of some of the cool things that data at Disney has been able to do in the Disney experiences space. And then I'll get into a little bit about my experience and the work that my team does. And then most importantly, I want to leave a lot of time for questions because I think that's the most interesting thing is seeing what you guys are passionate about, seeing what you're interested in. So we'll focus most of our time there at the end.
The technology and digital team plays a vital role in the Disney parks, experiences, and products business. By combining data and storytelling, we build experiences that converge digital and physical worlds and bring the Walt Disney Company's brands and franchises to life for families and fans around the world. We are engineers, artists, innovators, and data scientists, writers, business leaders, project managers, and technologists. Together, we make the impossible possible so our guests can make magical memories that will last a lifetime. We power our businesses to expand, excel, and extend services at every step of the Disney experience. If you book it, buy it, plan it, or play it, we built it. Within our division, we support the technological growth and digital innovation of world-class retail, theme park, resort hotel, cruise line, publishing, games, and licensing businesses in more than 200 different countries and territories around the world. Our team members have the opportunity to work on cutting-edge projects and immersive experiences using artificial intelligence, robotic automation, machine learning, and augmented reality. We drive our businesses forward into new areas, creating new experiences and digital products for all to enjoy. In every team, you'll find a vibrant, collaborative, and diverse community that dares to dream and champions change. We are patent holders, award winners, mentors, and advocates. We are lifelong learners, creatives, and collaborators. We are parents, friends, and cast members, and we make magic.
So maybe a little cheesy, but it's kind of fun to see in action the things that can happen when you use data to make decisions that ultimately bring these projects to life. And I think that's ultimately my favorite part of the job too. What's so rewarding is being able to work on a project and then go inside the parks and see something that you've worked on come to life, see guests interacting in it, and just see the joy that it brings to people. I think it's a really cool and unique thing about working at Disney as well. So I just kind of wanted to explain the overall hierarchy of how Disney works. Disney is a massive company, right? So I'm not going to be able to touch on every part of Disney, but really the Walt Disney Company is broken into three main lines of business. So on the left, you have Disney Entertainment. That's everything from Disney Plus to National Geographic, Pixar, ABC. All of your media and entertainment stuff is wrapped up in what they just rebranded as Disney Entertainment. The second one is ESPN. It's kind of all out by itself right now in a line of business. And then the last one is Disney Experiences. So this is the line of business that I'm a part of. Includes everything from all of the theme parks, the cruise lines, the resorts, the publishing, the experiences, so Adventures by Disney, National Geographic Adventures, stuff like that. So my experience really will be focused on this last line of business today, the Disney Experiences, just so you can kind of get an idea of where my experiences and the most of my knowledge about Disney data. So the team that I'm on, the broader organization, is called Revenue Planning and Optimization. So really our goal is to try to balance the commercial aspect of Disney experiences with the customer experience. So often these are inverses, right? If you do something that makes the company more money, often people are going to be pretty unhappy about it. So things like paying for fast passes or something like that that might generate more revenue for the company usually is going to decrease the customer experience. And then vice versa, when you do things that make the customer happy, you might be missing out on potential revenue. So the purpose of our organization is really to try to sit in the middle and balance those two ideas. Make money for the company, yes, but also continually improve the customer experience so people want to keep coming back. So a few of the main ideals that we're able to use data to do is to empower our cast members, optimize the results, orchestrate growth, and drive predictability. So obviously, there's a lot of different ways that we can do this with data, and it takes a bunch of different positions and teams within this organization to make that happen. So it's not just data scientists. We also have pricing analysts. We also have revenue management team members. a lot of subject matter experts that ultimately help us bring the data to a place that it can be used to make decisions for the business. So my specific team within this organization is called the Commercial and Customer Experience Intelligence Team. It's a mouthful, but basically we are the most data-centric team within our organization. So we have data analysts, data engineers, and data scientists on our team to do cross-domain analysis to kind of combine all of the other insights that these other teams are bringing, all the data that we have available to us, and bring it up to a level where people are able to make business decisions from it. So just kind of an overview, like I said, we have data engineers, data science, and data analysts. So you can kind of see I fall in the middle of the spectrum here. So I'm not the most technical on the team, and I am not, just kind of doing dashboards and stuff. I'm somewhere in the middle, doing a little bit of both. Often that means kind of bridging the gap between the technology and the business. So being able to speak both of those languages, trying to convert what the business needs into data needs and vice versa. So one thing about our team that's really unique, like I mentioned, we're cross-domain. So we don't have any specific domain expertise. So there are resorts teams, there's park ticket teams, there are teams that work specifically on Disney Park Pass, merchandise, dining, stuff like that. But we really kind of sit in the middle of all of these teams, and we can combine data across all of these different domains to get an idea of a guest's holistic trip. So for example, for a guest that comes, we can look through their resort data to the tickets that they have and kind of get an idea of what their overall trip was like, so that we can, either figure out ways to optimize their trip from a revenue standpoint or from the customer experience standpoint, trying to find out how we can get the best experience for our guests across the board. So just quickly, some of the tools that I use in my everyday work. I use a lot of SQL for database querying. Python is the main programming language that I use. We also use Tableau to create dashboards. Occasionally I'll use R, and then of course Excel, which isn't necessarily the preferred tool of the data science community, but you got to remember you're working with so many different teams, and each of those teams is in a different place technology-wise. So we have a lot of teams that come with us that have been using the same Excel spreadsheet template from maybe the 90s, right? So you got to be flexible, you got to be adaptable, you got to be able to kind of speak all of these languages, and ultimately the goal is, to upgrade some of these systems sometimes when you're working with them. But sometimes this is what they're used to seeing, this is all they really want to see. So you got to be flexible and be willing to work with the teams that you partner with. Speaking of partner teams, like I said, this is one of the main things that we do is partner teams will come to us and they'll ask really important business questions that they have and that they either don't have access to the data to or they don't know how to look through the data for. So they'll come to us with questions. We'll be able to look through that data, build models, or do any kind of analysis that we need to address the question, and then come back with them so that they can make decisions for their line of business. So again, everything from pricing to food and beverage revenue management. So that's things like how many reservations can we take in a day for a restaurant? How do we optimize that process? And then planning and forecasting, customer engagement, industrial engineering, commercial strategy, parks yield, which is basically how many people can we let in the park at any given time, and how do we optimize that from a segment standpoint and just from an overall capacity standpoint. And then finance and marketing as well. So marketing is always a fun one because it's so far out of my usual domain, but a lot of times the marketing team will come to us and say, hey, we want to send a message to maybe some of the annual pass holders that we're worried might not renew their pass. So we kind of can go into the data, see what drives annual pass holder renewal, and then use that to be able to identify guests that we think might be at risk for not renewing their pass, and pass along that information to them, along with things that drive renewals, so hopefully they can steer the customer or the guest in the right direction to get the most out of their pass. So real quick before we go to questions, I thought it'd be fun just to kind of show an example of something that our team might work on. So for example, the transportation team came to us, and they had a question about how to optimize their bus routes. So at Disney World, you can take the bus from any of the resorts to the parks, between the parks, Disney Springs, and back. And at Walt Disney World alone, there are 32 resorts, 4 parks, and Disney Springs. So as you can imagine, that's a pretty large graph network that you're working with. So I think the real key in this project and what makes our team successful when working with data is just being intellectually curious, asking lots of questions. Critical thinking and problem solving are the most important skill that you can have when working with data, because data can't always be taken at face value. The most important things when you're looking at data is first to identify what your goal is and what the impact of reaching that goal will be. So for this kind of fake example here, the idea would be to optimize the bus utilization or the capacity. So you want to be able to save time for both the guest and the bus driver, again, save labor resources, and you're saving money when you're using less labor resources, less gas, stuff like that. And then, so that's more of the commercial impact, right? So the customer experience impact would be minimizing wait times for your guests. There is nothing worse than at the end of a very long Disney day, you've walked 10 miles around the park and you're standing there waiting for 25 minutes for a bus, right? So really lowering the wait times could lead to higher customer satisfaction all around. You don't want the bus at the end of the day to be what ruins someone's entire day of memories, because it's what sticks with them when they're tired and they're ready to go home. So once you kind of identify what you're trying to do and why it's important, then I think you think through what data you need to capture in order to make this a reality. So some of the things that you could think through for an example like this. And again, this is where you kind of go back to leaning on your subject matter experts. I'm not a bus expert, right? I'm not a transportation expert. I don't know what KPIs are typically used for bus scheduling. I don't know what Disney-specific goals are. So working really close with the subject matter experts to figure out what's important to them, what KPIs they would like to reach, then you can kind of go in and figure out, okay, here's how we can set up a measuring plan to see if we're meeting these KPIs. And then after any optimization that we do or any models that we build, see how those models have improved on what's already in place, or if you need to keep working and keep improving. So one thing for buses is load factor. So basically, how many guests are on each bus, right? So this is kind of important for that first piece on there, optimizing the bus utilization. You don't want to come and pick up one person at a time. You want to make sure that you're utilizing your resources effectively. Second one is kind of related to the wait times. So when you're thinking about how to measure wait times, there's a few different ways that you could do it. Is it the first person in line? So do you care about the maximum wait time that people are experiencing? Or is it the last person in line? Is it just, how quickly people can get on the bus when they get in line, lucky as the last one? Time that the line exceeds basically what would be the max capacity of the bus, which at Disney World could be measured by certain railings that are in place or certain marks that are on the ground. Or do you want to take a random selection of guests, see how long they waited, average wait time, stuff like that. So that's, again, where it's important to consult with the experts, see what they're interested in, see what makes the most sense for the problem at hand. Another one would be the time between the buses. So how long did it take to load the buses? Because you can't get another bus in there until the first bus is already loaded, right? And in a place like Disney, where you have scooters and ECVs, making sure that you can load those safely is the most important thing, right? Making sure that those are safe and secure, but also trying to measure, how efficient you can be with that as well. And then the last one, maybe their goal is just to clear the curb every time a bus comes. So they want to try to get as many guests in as possible so that no one is waiting more than one bus round. So again, not necessarily super detailed, but just some of the things that you might think through when you're faced with a general project in a subject area that you might not be as familiar with. Having an inquisitive mindset is really important, and making sure that you can capture the right data. Even if the business is asking for something, it's important to kind of keep digging to figure out what that translates to on the data side. So the last thing I'll leave you with is, of course, the Disney careers page. I went on yesterday and I typed in the keyword data, 477 jobs came up. So I think that really shows how important data is today. And not only how many jobs came up, but the breadth of jobs that came up. You can be a data scientist, a data engineer, or you can be, anything like an architect. Like, there are so many different applications of jobs. Marketing, sales, everyone uses data nowadays. Data-driven decisions are the most important thing to a company. Most companies don't really have the time or the resources to mess around with different ideas, so having something that's backed by data is really important, and that can be done in a variety of different ways. So that's kind of what I'll leave you to in the general talk, and then, like I said, wanted to leave a lot of time for questions, so excited to hear what you guys ask.
Yeah, as Morgan said, we're going to leave lots of time for you guys to ask questions and to socialize with Morgan and ask personal, anything you want about what Morgan has experienced. Keep in mind that answers may be slightly general, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the privacy of the company, but we're excited to hear your ideas. Go for it.
Yes.
So with all the jobs and data and stuff, as far as to get an idea of the scope or whatnot, like in your group or your team, how many staff or employees do you have that are like in your area, and then kind of how would it go up from there?
Yeah. So I think to answer that question, I can go back to kind of the flow. So from from the Walt Disney Company, you break into these three lines of business. So Disney Experiences on the right, where I'm at. Imagine more lines under that for each of the parks, the cruise lines, stuff like that. So I fall within Walt Disney World. So currently Florida-based, and all the data that we use, for the most part, is Disney World specific data. So only Disney World in Florida. And then within Disney World, we fall into the revenue and planning organization. And then within that, I'm in this CCXI team. So that's a lot of layers, right? And my team is only 12 people right now, so it's really small, but you kind of scale that up and you can get an idea of the magnitude of how many people there are that work with data. And I guess another reference point, every year Disney does a Disney Data and Analytics Conference, which is so much fun. It's basically like everyone from the company that's involved in data and analytics joins for this conference, and then we have outside vendors as well for the first 2 days. And then the last day is our internal day, so it's just Disney employees. I think last year there were about 2,000 of us, internal employees, just at that conference, mostly from Disney World, Disneyland, and Disney Entertainment, but there are some international guests that came to that one too. But it's pretty large scale, just within the data and analytics segment. Yes.
Is the majority of data you use from customer surveys, or what are the most important ways to get to data?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that Disney and other companies collect their data. Again, staying high level just for legal reasons. But a a lot of the data that's collected is like customer behavior data. So when you make a reservation online, right, any company is going to have the data for that, whether it's a resort reservation, a dining reservation, something like that. And then the My Disney Experience app kind of allows you to, determine how much data you want to share about yourself with a company. So there's a variety of sources. I would say customer surveys are a little more on the lower scale of the data that we have and that we work with, but still a really important part when we're trying to optimize the customer experience. Yes.
You said you accepted a new position just last week. What's that new position look like, and how does it differ from where you're currently at?
Yeah, so the new position, I think the title is Senior Tech Manager or something. Again, a lot of buzzwords typically thrown around in the tech space. But essentially, the executive director that was on my team moved to this new space within tech and digital. It's actually a program and project management organization, but he is setting up a data science and analytics branch of it. So that's kind of what I'm going to head up, is the introduction of data science and analytics to that space. Yeah. I'll be able to hopefully share more once I get a little more into it, but I haven't started it yet. So, yes.
I don't know if you're allowed to answer this, but what would you say is like the most successful project you've ever worked on with Disney?
Oh, that's a really good question. I worked on a big Genie Plus project that was really successful. So, and don't worry, I was on the good side. I was trying to enhance the customer experience. So, again, don't really want to go into details about it, but that's probably like the biggest one that I was able to see in action that actively helped the customer experience on the back end.
Could you explain like what Genie Plus is, or like what it does?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
No,
Again, being in the kind of Disney space, there's a lot of weird words and acronyms and stuff that we use. But Genie Plus is basically a paid system that you can get to get access to shorter lines for the rides. So before the pandemic, there was something called a Fast Pass, which is what you use to get access to those shorter lines. Post-pandemic is when they came out with Genie Plus, which is the paid version of that. So you can pay, it's anywhere from like $15 to $35 a day. And on the app, you can see all the different rides that you can choose from. You can select return times. So you're basically waiting in like a virtual line instead of waiting in a physical line for most of the rides.
And the user interface has gotten a lot better.
It is, it's improving. Yeah, and see, that's not me. The user interface isn't me, so don't blame me for that. But it's getting better. They're figuring it out. I think, again, one of the main things we got involved really early with Genie Plus is because they didn't realize initially how successful it was going to be. So a lot of things weren't necessarily set up for the volume of traffic that it was receiving. So that's kind of where we came in on the data side to say, like, okay, this is what we see is going on. This is how we see the customer experience reacting to this. So here are suggestions for that. And then later on, we would build models for other aspects of it to try to, enhance and optimize the way the customer was feeling about it. Because whenever you take something that used to be free and make it paid, automatically going to be a little bit of annoyance there. So you got to try to make it the best product that it can be if you're going to be paying for it. Yes.
So what kind of information spurred the creation of the virtual queue that there is for like right now, the Tron ride, the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then piggybacking off of that? How are the like segments for like your queue position determined? Is it every certain amount of time? Like, oh, sections like A through F, you can go now. So how does that kind of figure it out?
Yeah, for that I would refer you to industrial engineering. So they're the ones that kind of work on that. Anytime they have a virtual queue, and really we have virtual queues for rides that are new and that we think the demand for would overpower the queue capacity that we have. So when Flight of Passage and Animal Kingdom first opened, it was like 5 to 6 hour wait for one ride. So obviously the customer experience really suffers with stuff like that. So they introduced the virtual queue, as I understand it. It was before I was at Disney too, as a way to try to allow people to ride that without spending their entire day dedicated to one ride. So right now, I think there's there's 5 individual lightning lanes, but there's 2 virtual queues happening right now, Tron and Guardians of the Galaxy. And personally, I love it because then I don't have to wait in line for it, but you do have to be on right at 7 a.m., clicking that refresh button. It's, it's not ideal in its current state, but it was ultimately brought on so that people wouldn't have to spend their entire day waiting in a physical line, often with little bathroom access. So, yes.
Yeah, when you were applying to grad schools, like what about the NC State program stood out to you? Like what skills were you hoping to get out of that? And I guess how did that mark your transition from EY to something like Disney?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually first heard about the NC State program when I was here at Elon, and I found it really interesting, really exciting. It's a very applied program, so you're not learning a lot of theory, you're more so learning different techniques and then actually going and applying them. You also have a practicum as part of it. So they try to make the experience simulate like a real life job as much as possible, which I thought would be the most valuable experience for, getting where I wanted to be in my career. So the other appeal of it is that it's like an intensive shortened program. So they take a 2-year program, basically folded in half, and you're left with a 10-month program. It's very intense. It is full-time, but I honestly just kind of wanted to get in and get out of it. And when I was at Elon, part of me was debating whether just to go straight to the program or get some work experience. To be completely honest with you, I was just a little tired of the whole school thing. I was ready for a break to go kind of experience the real world for a little bit. But it was nice because I was in Charlotte when I was at EY, so I also got in-state tuition, which helped too. Also part of the decision to go to that program, but I would definitely highly recommend it. And then, when I was there, I just used it as kind of a pivot point in my career. So I was in technology consulting, and I knew that I wanted to get back into data science and analytics. And I thought I probably could have forged a path myself without going back to grad school, but I feel like it really accelerated that career change. So I was able to use that year as a pivot, get the master's in analytics, kind of brush off the dust a little bit of the math, statistics, computer science I had learned at Elon. And then when I was there is when I came across this job posting, and was my dream job, so went for it, and it ended up working out from there. Yes.
Kind of going off of that, I appreciated the different job titles that you gave us
Mm-hmm.
that stem from data. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from being at Elon and everything you did?
Mm-hmm.
What influenced you or made your decisions and thinking change to kind of, I'm sure you played between like those different titles of, I could go into this or go into that.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of insight into your journey and experiences?
Yeah,
Process?
absolutely. That's a great question, and something that I thought a lot about when I was at Elon too, because my early years I was like, I really love my math, statistics, and computer science courses, but I don't necessarily know what I can do with it. So the summer between my sophomore and junior year, I did a research experience at UNC Wilmington, and that's where I actually got introduced to the NC State program and the concept of data science. And it really stuck to me because I could combine all 3 of those passions and still be able to take projects from end to end and kind of present them out to the business, be a part of the business decision too. So for me, data engineers or machine learning engineers or software engineers, those were a little bit too far technical for what I wanted to do. They do some really awesome work, but a lot of times they aren't as passionate about presenting that to the business and kind of seeing the project all the way to the end. They're setting up a lot of infrastructure that allows other people to do their job really well, but they aren't necessarily bringing it all the way up to the business sense. And then on the other end, analytics or business intelligence, you kind of are just getting a taste of the data. So usually you're building dashboards, sometimes doing some light analysis, but I had a little bit more craving for actually building models, getting my hands dirty in the code a little bit. So for me, I felt like it was the perfect balance, but I think there's a personality and a background that is perfect for all of those positions.
What did you do at EY, and how did that position compare to the current position at Disney?
Yeah, so at EY I was doing technology consulting. So I was in the financial services organization, and consulting is all project-based. So you don't necessarily have a single job description when you're a consultant. So the projects that I was working on, I did a lot of implementations for enterprise data warehouse. I did some project management. It's kind of all over the board and the skill sets that I used in the projects that I did. And I really valued that time for the experience that it gave me. And one of the key skill sets that I learned there, kind of mentioned briefly, is being able to bridge the technology and the business. So I was in a lot of meetings with business stakeholders, and they would give me requirements. I would translate that to data requirements and help the team build out, the data capture systems, or, we did a lot of like ETL jobs, stuff like that. But again, I wasn't doing the analytics work that I was really passionate about, and I was missing more of like being involved in the decision-making process. So I think I got a lot of valuable skills out of my time in consulting. Also just people skills. Consulting, it's really great. You're working with people all the time, lots of different people. Presentation skills, deck building. There was a lot that I valued and got out of it. But long term, I saw myself being more fulfilled in a data science career, which is kind of why I made the decision to go back and then ultimately look for data science positions after the program. Yes.
Would you say that working at a company like Disney makes it like more magical per se, or do you kind of get like sick of it, or do you love it more now?
Yeah,
than before?
it's a good question, and one that I actually was asking myself before I started. I was like, is this going to ruin the magic? But for me personally, it doesn't. I think it's more meaningful to me now, seeing everything that happens in the background to make what is happening on stage. So I've gotten some really cool like backstage tours that have been fun, getting to see how some of the rides work, some of the different lands that they've developed, like the new Star Wars, Galaxy's Edge land, the new Toy Story land, stuff like that. So it really fascinates me, kind of getting all those fun facts. And I personally just find it more interesting knowing how much work goes into it and the way that everyone kind of works together from beginning to end to bring something to life. I'm sorry. When the sound came on, I'm getting messages. So yeah, I think for me personally, it's more magical. Now, I know a lot of people who work for Disney that go to the parks every single day. I'm not that person. I enjoy going to the parks, but mostly like when I have people in town visiting me, it's really fun to see it through other people's eyes, especially if they haven't been in a long time, getting to see the new attractions, the new lands, whatever that may be. And then, with the Epcot festivals, when those pop up, those are really fun to go explore with my friends, see something new. So it doesn't get old for me, but I also don't go all the time. Yes.
I guess with you not saying you don't go to the parks all the time, where do you work? Or like where in the resort?
Yeah.
Like on the resort still or not? Or
Yeah, so I am in an office-based job. I'm at Team Disney, which is right across the street from Disney Springs. It looks like a cruise ship. I should have included a picture because it's really wild. It's on property, but it's not in the parks. on stage. So, I wear business casual, still like an office job, which is maybe why I don't get sick of the parks, because I'm not dealing with the guests all the time either. So yeah, it's good. It's got some Disney flair to it, but it's still an office.
So, it's such a large organization. You talked about on one side, you were saying, we, work with some of these other teams or stuff. How much do you feel like you interact and get out of your actual team, right? Other different teams that are within the building, how much do you feel like you've really connected with other people on other teams outside of your team? How much does that really happen?
Every day. Yeah. So our team, like I said, we are kind of referred to as like the data and analytics people within our organization, and we don't create a lot of projects ourselves. More so, it's people coming to us with important things that they have that we will work with them on. So it's not like I'm sitting here being like, oh, maybe I'll try to create a model that fixes X, Y, and Z, right? It's more so like a pricing partner will come to us and saying like, oh, we're looking at Mickey's Not So Scary event this year. Like, can you help us analyze this data that we have? We want to build a model for pricing for next year. Can you help us do that? So again, it's a lot of working with other teams, and I'm learning something new every single day because Disney's just so massive. You can't possibly be an expert in all spaces of it. So that's why I think like having that inquisitive mindset and just being really open to working with people and seeing what they have to say is so important. So yeah, I would say every single day working with other people, which is really fun because then you build like a large network of peers and friends. And it works both ways too. Sometimes I'll really need some merchandise data or something, and I'll be able to reach out to some coworkers that I've worked with in the past, be like, hey, do you have this data? Can we work together on this kind of thing? So it's really, really collaborative in my space, which is also part of the reason why it's so fun. And the Disney nice is pretty real. Everyone is pretty generally nice and willing to help and work together. So it's a good environment.
What's something you find challenging about your job?
So I just said most people are like really nice and open to working. Not everyone is as willing to share data as you might hope. So sometimes you have hurdles where a team is really protective of their data, and it's like, oh, I know I could really improve my model if I had this data, but they're just not budging on it. So you kind of have to deal with the cards that you're dealt with sometimes when you face those hurdles, which can be a little frustrating, a little challenging. You kind of have to think about things in different ways, but it's not that bad. It kind of encourages that creativity, like I said, thinking about things that you may not have thought before, consulting with your other teammates, being like, hey, can we brainstorm this together, stuff like that. But I think that's every company. You're going to have some areas that are more accessible than others. So that's what I would say the biggest challenge is.
We'll take one more. Go ahead. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi. So, as you mentioned, you work with like different groups or whatever every day, and you had all the different like softwares and stuff that you work with. Do you ever like have issues or anything like with going from like different like programming softwares or coming from like other groups and that thing?
Yeah, I think for the most part, the teams that we're dealing with aren't as technical, so they want to kind of see the wrapped up version with a bow on it. So most times, like, I can't ever tell you when I've shown one of our partner teams my Python file, right? Because that doesn't really mean anything to them. What I do is I build the model in Python, and then I observe the accuracy, take insights from it, and I can productionalize it for them and give them the output like on a daily, weekly basis, whatever that is. But I think the most important part in there is, again, speaking the language of the teams that you're partnering with. And for us, most teams, like I said, aren't caring about what's in the model. It's just if they can understand it and if they're seeing results from it. are really the two most important things. So I would say that most, if not all of these things are just tools that we use to get the work done. It's not necessarily things that we're actively working with our partner teams on. Maybe a Tableau dashboard, we kind of get their take on what they want to see, how they want it designed, formatting, stuff like that. But for the most part, we don't really have any trouble kind of converting back and forth. Plus, like once you get into coding, R and Python have different syntax, but the base level understanding is the same. So the other part about being a good data practitioner is being really resourceful. And by that I mean knowing how to Google, knowing where to look, right? So if you know that you want to build a random forest in Python and you only know how to do that in R, you can basically look up the syntax online and say R to Python, and someone will help you with the exact syntax for what you're looking for. So as long as you understand the underlying logic behind your code, it's pretty easy to translate back and forth between the two.
Well, let's go ahead and thank Morgan one last time.